What is going on, guys? Hope you're doing well today. And here, finally, I will be showing my deck profile for Blue Purple Kaido, as many of you has requested. Here is the deck profile. Now, before we get started, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more deck profiles like this, gameplays. This will help me a lot. Please, I'm trying to reach 500 subscribers, so please hit that subscribe. Leave a like if you are also a believer of Blue Purple Kaido, because now that the meta has slowed down, we have a better fighting chance. And let me know in the comments below what are the modifications that you would do in this list. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so here we have our searchers. So starting with Who's Who, that's been introduced in OP4. Who's Who joining the crew allows us to search for the top 5 cards of our deck for Animal Kingdom Pirates. So we finally got in OP4 the searcher that we needed. Unfortunately, like I said before, he's blue. He's not purple because apparently purple would have been too strong. But yeah, so we have Who's Who help us get the Onigashima or whatever Animal Kingdom pirates that we need at that moment. And in OP5, we get introduced with a new OT. OT, 4 cost, 5000 powers, and she actually has a 1000 counter, which is extremely good. And on play, if our leader is multicolored, we look at the 3 cards from the top of our deck and add 1 card, any card. So the good thing about OT is that if we have a lot of non-Animal Kingdom pirate cards, she can actually grab them. So as you're gonna see further along this video, I mainly try to play with Animal Kingdom just because I like those cards. But at the end of the video, I will do some honorable mentions of cards that I would recommend to try out. And OT will be great for these cards. Now, for the rest of the ability, because I forgot, if she was not strong enough, she also lets you put the 2 other cards that you're not picking at the top or at the bottom of your deck. So you can actually stack your top deck with the 2 other cards that you've well, not revealed, but saw, right? So that's pretty good. All right, so that's it for our searchers. At the end, you'll see how many that I put, but these 2 cards are easy for us. All right, let's move on. All right, for this, we have our ramp cards. So, as you know, the main goal of this deck with the leader ability that I forgot to mention, but you guys already know the leader ability. So the leader ability is for 1 Dawn on your turn, once per turn. When one of your opponent characters is KO'd, you may add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So, just like any purple deck, the objective is to ramp. So in this deck, the majority of your ramping will be done by your leader and Onigashima Island, right? Those are your 2 main sources for ramping in this version of the deck that I'm revealing to you today. The third option is with Sasaki. So Sasaki, which is also a 2k counter, allows you to ramp 1 rested Dawn by attaching 1 Dawn to the character and attacking. So this is a little bit harder and slower. That's why that's the third option. Like, you don't want to put Sasaki on the field because it is very, very easy to clear. So yeah, this is it for your ramp. Next, you have your blockers. Now, I'm not telling you anything new when I say that Kaido is very, very vulnerable to aggressive decks. So not only Zoro, Law, but now Kid is making a comeback and is very aggressive with his stupid ability, right? The ability that lets him swing twice, insane. And in OP6, if you've seen the new cards, that mechanic is gonna be even crazier. But anyways, that is for a long time. Now let's focus for OP5. So even though the meta is slowing down, we still have to face aggressive decks. So these blockers are there to help you. Now the first one is Doflamingo. Doflamingo is one of the few non-Animal Kingdom pirates that I have in the deck because it's simply too good. The ability to allow you to stack your 5 cards is insane. And this card, I could actually put it in the searcher category because you kind of search through your deck to stack it and then draw whatever you need the next turn, just in a slower manner. But it's a blocker, so it's all good, you know. It's like it's not a searcher that lets you draw 1 card, but at least you get to have a blocker on the field. The next one is actually a new blocker that we're getting in OP5, which is Hawkins. So a 4 cost, 5000 attack, 1k counter, and when blocking, if you have 3 or less cards in your hand, you draw 1 card. Then this character gains 1000 power for this battle. Now, it's a little better than the blocker Black Maria, but at the same time, like, it's only for that battle. So the effect doesn't stay for the entirety of the turn that your opponent is attacking, but at least it helps you. But what I really like about this blocker is the ability to draw 1 card. So like I said, this deck is very, very weak against aggressive decks. So most of the time, you're gonna empty your hand to try to survive until your late game. Once you reach your late game, that's when you become very, very powerful. So you'll have to defend yourself. So by discarding your hand to counter, and with Hawkins to let you draw more cards, so it helps you get through your deck and actually survive. So that's why I like this card. And the last blocker, obvious choice for the deck, probably one of the best blockers in the game, is Queen. 5 cost, 6000 attack, blocker, on play, -1 Dawn. You get to draw 2 cards and trash 1 card. So already there is a great value, and it's a 6k blocker. It's a little bit harder to remove, even though it's very easy to remove, but they have to go an extra card to remove it. And yeah, that's it for the blockers. Let's move on. Next, you have your 2k counters. So we're already seeing Sasaki. Sasaki helps you ramp, and it has a 2k counter. But I would say that 90% of the time you want to play Sasaki as a 2k counter. You don't want to drop him because, like I said before, very easy to remove. The next one that I put in the deck is OT. Now OT is a 2k counter. Most of the time you'll use her as a 2k counter, but the ability which we use in this deck is very strong because we're getting away from a meta and we've been away from that sort of meta that playing 1 card per turn is good. Now you want to try to play multiple cards on the field, so that way you actually have a board that is hard to deal with, especially with all the removals that are coming up. You want to have multiple characters so at least one of them survives. So that's where OT comes in clutch. So you'll see later on that I do pair her with page 1 because obviously her ability only works with page 1. Now, the last 2k counter that we have is X-Drake. Now, this could be interchangeable with other 2k counters, but I have a sweet spot for X-Drake. I find his ability can come in clutch in some games, and especially his base stats also. 5k for 5 cost is pretty decent, you know? When you get to a point in the game where your opponent has low cards in hand, the discarding one card can make him take a lot of damage with that, and you have a body to boot. So I like him, but you can probably change him for a multitude of other 2k counters that blue and purple have. Alright, that's it for the 2ks. Alright, the next one is the vanilla, the only vanilla of the deck, which is page 1, and I opted to go for the 6k page 1 instead of the 5k purple one that lets you attack active characters, and even the blue one, right? Because the blue one doesn't have a counter. So honestly, I don't think it might be good in some decks, but for me, I prefer this one. Has a 1k counter and 6k body. So like I said before, this majority of the time you're gonna play it with OT in the combo, but sometimes you will be forced to just hard play him as a vanilla. So yeah, that's it for this vanilla. All right, the next part is your end game. So like I said before, you want to survive until you reach the end game because you have access to these big characters. Now, I know I'm talking about end game, and I have King here, which is like more of a mid game, like early game, but like I still feel that he has the same synergy as the rest, which is either KOing or removing cards from the field. So King actually can come in clutch towards the end of the game by removing a lot of the blockers. So that's one of the reasons why I have him here. But obviously you can actually play him either on curve or when you have 7 dawns. That's when you want to play King at 7 dawns. And when you're at 7 dawns, you're pretty much like at the end of the mid game and getting into your late game, right? So being able to KO a 4 cost or less and ramp 1 down with your leader ability, it's pretty good. The next one is the 9 cost Kaido. Now this is probably my favorite card of the deck, and the reason is because the synergy that this card has with our leader, to me, till this day, it's insane. It's crazy. Because once you reach 10 dawns, you add 1 dawn to your leader, right? You attach 1 dawn to your leader, then you drop the 9 cost Kaido. Not only do you get to KO one of your opponent's character that is 6 cost or less, but you also get to ramp 1 dawn. So once you do that, since you have to lose 5, you're going back to 6. And if you have Onigashima, you're going back to 7 on the same turn that you drop the 9 cost Kaido. So if you're following this far, that means that the following turn, you actually get to play him again. So you can do back-to-back 9 cost Kaido with the blue-purple Kaido. I know I've said the name a lot, but it's just that crazy. So very, very good synergy with our leader, which is why I like it so much. And obviously gains rush, so this is a card when you want to be super aggressive, right? Because you have a lot of options to play when you have 10 dons. So when you want to be aggressive, you drop him. When you want to clear the board, you go to the following one, which is the purple 10 cost Kaido. So for -6 dons, you wipe the board and you wipe your own board. But if you have to play him, you play him, right? Because a lot of boards are going to be very, very scary in OP5. So this card is very, very useful. And the last one is the blue Kaido. So that makes a lot of big bodies that you have to manage. But, you know, I think they have a place in the deck because that gives you a level of flexibility late game that is, I'm not going to say unmatched by other leaders, but it's very, very competitive. So the 10 cost blue Kaido lets you return a 8 cost and a 3 or less, well 8 or less and 3 or less. So it lets you return 2 of your opponent's character and leaves you with a body of 12k. So crazy. Like, what can I say? It's just ridiculous. So this is your late game, very, very powerful. And yeah, that's it for the late game. All right, so to finish off the deck, we have the only event that I play in this deck, and is Red Rock. So you might be asking, wondering, like, why do I just play Red Rock? I could be playing counters, I could be playing multitude of events to help this deck, but I chose to play Red Rock. So one of the reasons why I play Red Rock is because it falls into a good, like, not a curve necessarily, but let me give you an example. So if in a situation I drop the 10 cost Kaido, the purple one, that brings me back to 4 dons. So that means that in my following turn, well, if I have Onigashima, I'm gonna be back to 6 or 7 if I have if I use the stage. So that leaves me just enough to play the Red Rock. And as we know, a lot of the times when you drop Kaido, it's either, for example, if you're in a mirror matchup, right, you drop the Kaido, then he's gonna drop the Kaido, then you just Red Rock the Kaido away. That is true for blue purple Kaido and the purple Kaido. And if you go to other matchups, like for yellow, for example, right, so like he has a scary board, you drop the 10 cost the purple Kaido, and then the odds are that he's going to play a big body. So your Red Rock is going to be there to just remove that big body and keep your character on the board. So that means that you gain a small advantage and you get to ramp with Onigashima. So the next turn after you play Red Rock, you're back at 10. So it's no losing with this card, right? And sometimes even like in your early or mid game, it could be very useful instead of playing a card, or you know, helps you control the field. The only drawback is that it is a 6 cost, so it's very, very expensive to play. Doesn't leave much room to play another card with, which is why I like the 3 cost of Flamingo blocker and the 4 cost Hawkins, so that you can actually, if you're at 10, you can actually do Red Rock and play a blocker, stack your deck, or just have a Hawkins to be able to draw 1 card with the blocking effect. So it leaves room for a little bit of flexibility. And of course you can also play your Who's Who or play OT to put a page 1 on the field. So allows for a great, like a certain level of flexibility, right? So that's why I play it, and I know it is very, very risky to not have a lot of counters, but that's just the playstyle that I'm trying out right now. Am I gonna end up with this list when OP5 comes out? Probably not, you know. Probably by the time that the set releases, this list is gonna change completely. And of course, I'm gonna be putting a deck profile when that happens. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see that updated deck profile in December when the set drops. And yeah, so that's it for the event. All right, so now that you've seen the deck, or at least all the cards that are in the deck, here are some cards to consider. So the 1-cost slot, well, let's go, completely the first row is additional blockers that you may consider playing in this deck. So like I said before, like we are very, very vulnerable to aggressive decks. So that's why I feel that blockers have a very, very important role in this deck. So the two first blockers here that you can consider are the Law and the Black Maria. So very cheap blockers that are easy to play, easy to combo with other blockers or other cards to control the board or to remove some character, or to spawn your OT page 1 combo and you play Black Maria and Law. You know, very, very flexible cards to combo with your other cards in the deck. And the next one is the Law blocker. So the Law blocker, you know, it's outside of the Animal Kingdom crew, but like I said before, because of OT, you can actually try to get it with OT, because OT allows you to get any card from the top 3 of your deck. So you could play this blocker Law and disrupt your opponent's hand. And if we know anything, is that with the meta slowing down, your opponents are gonna have more cards in their hand, so hand disruption is gonna be very, very good. So a pretty good card to consider. I might try it out in the future, but right now I'm gonna leave it here in this section. The next one is X-Drake. So X-Drake for OP5, it's a blocker that has the same ability as Doflamingo, but it costs more to play. So 5 cost for 6,000 attack, and it has a counter. So it's pretty much this, like it depends on your playstyle. Like we already have the Queen, which I feel like it's better than this X-Drake for the same stats. So that's why I didn't put it in the deck, because that's gonna make a lot of heavy blockers that you cannot potentially, like you can't really combo it with other cards unless like they cost 4 or 5. So it's, I don't know, it's a bit awkward to have so many like high cost blockers. So that's why like a fine distribution is important in my opinion. All right, and the last one is the Kid blocker, which when I think about it, this is probably one of the blockers that I might considering adding to the deck more than the Law blocker or the X-Drake or any of the small blockers, because the ability of when you return a Dawn to your deck and you can add up to 1 of your Dawn and set it as active, that synergizes well with your Queen, with your ulti, with your 9-cost Kaido. So you still like you have good synergies around that card. So it might actually come in clutch sometimes to help you ramp up an extra card, because if you have that in your field and then you drop the 9-cost Kaido, so not only do you ramp with your ability, you ramp with Onigashima, but you also ramp with Kid. Like honestly, the more that I think about it, maybe it is worth it to make some room for this blocker. So out of all the blockers, I think this one is gonna be high in my priorities to try out in this deck. Now we go to the next row, and we have the kid character from the starter deck, right? And this card is good, more so because it gives you an extra 1,000 when you're like already a vulnerable leader. So it might be worth it to try out just to gain a little bit more defense. But the downside is that yes, it's a big body that you play. It's at 7, but you don't have a counter for it, right? It doesn't have a counter on that card, and maybe there are better options to play instead of the kid here. But I think it's still worth trying out. Now, for the rest of the cards are your counters. Like I said, there are no counters in my deck as of right now. But these 4 are pretty much the only ones that I will be considering trying out in the next few weeks, just to see if I really need them. So far, I think Last Breath might be one of the events that I try, because with your ability, you're often ramping 1 active, so Last Breath is perfect for that. And the other one is the Jet Gatling, right? It costs you 0, but you have to discard 1 card, which if you've played this deck, you know that you can afford. You can get rid of your Onigashima Islands, your extra ones that you don't need. You can get rid of your big bodies that you're not gonna play, right? Like sometimes the purple 10 cost Kaido is unplayable in a lot of situations because you don't want to clear your board and you don't want to leave yourself vulnerable to rush attacks, right? Because if you drop him, then you have no blockers and you just rely solely on your counters in your hand. So these 2 are going to be the ones that I test out first, and then the other 2 are pretty classic ones, right? Thunder Bagua, on trigger you get to ramp, and then if you have 2 or less life, when you counter you get to ramp Arrested Dawn, and you boost your character or leader for 4,000, which is a pretty good counter. And the other one, the Dragon Twister, which I think with the bans restriction, and even when they're going to be getting rid of the balance restriction for OP5, I don't think that Dragon Twister is going to have a spot in the deck for the meta, especially if Sakazuki, Purple Luffy, and Enel are going to be the decks that are going to dominate the format. Dragon Twister is pretty much useless against them. So that's it for the cards to consider. And now I'm going to show the whole deck list, and yeah, let's get to it. All right, so here we have the whole deck list. So now you can see who's who. Have it at 4, Doflamingo at 4, Sasaki, I reduced it to 2, right? Since we don't really want to play him, but sometimes it's good to have, and it's a 2k counter, which is good. Then Oti, put it at 4, testing her out, and honestly, she has done me good. But Oti might be a card that I reduce to 3, since like you don't always get to play her, right? Because she does cost 4 dawns, which is pretty expensive, even though her ability is very strong. But yeah, so Oti might be dropped to 3. Hawkins, honestly, 4, very comfortable, because we have a nice like curve for blockers, 3, 4, and then 5 with Queen. So you have a good flexibility with this blocker. Like I said before, there are other blockers to consider. So Hawkins might be one that I reduce. So maybe I put 2 Hawkins and 2 of other blockers with either Black Maria, Law, or the Kid blocker. So that's to be seen, but for now, that's good. Ulti 4, of course, X-Drake 4, page 1 at 4. This might also be one that I drop to 3, but at the same time you want to see the combo as much as you can, so I think 4 would be very, very good. And of course, for queen and king, reduced it to 2. Before I used to have 3, but I think, you know, like, yes, it is good. There's a lot of good 4 cost characters to target, but I think not enough to justify 3, in my opinion. But I could be wrong, because I do know that a lot of people run 3 or 4 of the king, but it's just that this deck is getting really, really heavy on non-counters, so I think king can take a hit. The next one is the 9 cost Kaido, which honestly, if I could, I would put 4, but I need room for other cards, so maybe eventually I will remove a red rock to put a 4th Kaido. That might be one of the changes that I make in the near future, because the 9 cost Kaido is just too good in this deck not to play 4 of. So 3, it's the limit. I don't think you can go below 3. I don't think having Kaido at 2 is really, really smart, but 3 feels good for now, right? With all your searchers, like your 8 searchers that you have, and your stacking ability of Doflamingo, you get to see him. Right? So I can, again, 3, I think it's pretty good. And then after that, 2 of the 10 cost Kaido, and the purple one, and 2 of the blue one. So these 2, I think it's enough. You don't need more. Red rock, you have it at 3, just for the potential of drawing it whenever you need. But like I said, the cost is fairly heavy, so maybe I will reduce it to 2 to be able to put something else. So I mentioned that I will probably change the red rock for a 9 cost Kaido, but I might actually also put it for an extra king or one of the 10 cost Kaidos. We'll see. Or maybe, you know, when I rearrange the rest, I could add in another blocker or something. And then to finish off the deck, we have 4 Onigashima. And I will leave it at 4, and I will always leave it at 4 for this simple reason that we don't always draw Onigashima our first turn. Even with our searcher, we still whiff the Onigashima. So we're putting 4 to increase the odds of getting Onigashima and being able to play it on curve. So that's it for the deck. I hope you enjoyed. I know I wanted to make it short, but I probably made it a bit too long, but whatever. This is a deck that I have been testing and will be testing until OP05 comes out. And when that does come out, I will be posting an updated deck profile with the actual cards in hand. So look forward to that. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see that deck profile, and leave a like if you enjoyed this deck profile. And again, let me know in the comments below, what would you change from this deck? I want to see your ideas. And I know a lot of people are going to say, what, you don't run any counters event? You are insane. And maybe I am, but honestly, this list has been decent for my kind of playstyle. But I hear you, some counter events might be necessary in this deck. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, so that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.